Cool. Hey, welcome everyone. It's been a while since we've had one of these. Tonight, Justin and I are going to talk a bit about Storybook. So one thing we thought we spoke about this a little bit before. Oh, geez, now here all my notifications fire. We spoke about kind of what we wanted to cover beforehand a bit, and I think one thing that we decided is we don't want to do a kind of a what is Storybook, how to use Storybook, and so forth, because there's a ton of really great material out there. We might
hmm
even link some of them if you want to check that out. And I think also nowadays with stuff like ChatGPT and so forth, it's way easier than ever just to get a quick handle on how to use something. So we
Agreed.
kind of want to do a bit of a higher level discussion in terms of how we use Storybook, like what the implications are, where it fits into our process, and so forth. I actually don't really know how Justin uses it. I don't think he really knows how I use it. So I think there's
hmm
going to be some interesting discussions that uh, come out of that. And as always, if you guys have any questions, pop them in a text chat. We'll throw them up on the screen and we'll unpack them. So, just before getting into this, I just want to first and foremost thank, I guess this is now what we're doing instead of slides. Just want to thank NML. Think. I want to thank NML. They kind of primarily sponsor these events. So that's the company that Justin works for, and also IO Digital, which if this is the first time tuning in, or whether you've watched a couple of these, you might also know Liesel Bester, who's kind of like no longer involved at IO, but she used to be kind of head of operations at IO, and they still sponsor us. So um, yeah, check them out, support them if you like what we do. They help us keep the lights on. All right, so then I think that's most of it, Justin, unless there's anything I missed.
No, that's good. Thanks,
Okay.
Schalk.
Uh, Also, just excuse the noise in the background. It's my birthday tomorrow, and the kids are preparing a surprise for me, which is a cake because I saw it when I walked past. But so they're just like screaming in the kitchen and going wild. So apologies for that. All right, so let's dive straight into it. So, Justin, I'd be curious when you started using Storybook and how you ended up
Sure.
at Storybook. Because I know for myself, there was kind of a long, a linear, not linear, but there was kind of a long lead to actually settling on Storybook. So I was using Pattern Lab by Brad Frost for a long
hmm
time. And then I kind of switched over to something called Docs, DOCZ. I think it's not maintained anymore. Um, and in between, I've kind of built a lot of my own stuff, just trying to get some type of, because like I've been using Pattern Lab at the very start, and like it was cool, but like they were like, I think it was using Mustache, if I'm not
hmm
mistaken, was templating language,
Yeah.
and like there are some limitations to that. And I've kind of tried to build my own things and so forth over time, and eventually settled on Storybook. But I think the first project that I ever used Storybook on was, I think it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And geez, like I can't even remember what it was when I was open up. I think it's a project that we built with I think almost like the South African Census Bureau or something like that.
Okay.
But that's the first time I started using Storybook, and um, mm, you know, and I spent way too much time just configuring Storybook, getting it to work exactly the way I wanted it, and figuring out how to mock things and everything, and not actually like that actually ended up taking a lot of dev time, but
Yeah.
um yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
like curious, like when you kind of started using it. Well, like maybe I'm curious. Let's start with where you kind of started. So I know you were using something like Jekyll
Yeah.
for a long time as
I
well. Yeah.
I built my own kind of design system library using Jekyll in
Mm,
2012.
yes. Oh,
That's 13
old
years
school.
ago.
Yeah. So I think for
Um,
me leading up, sorry, so I think so mine was obviously Pattern Lab.
yeah,
Because I think like for a lot of us kind of Brad Frost's atomic design really
that
kind
was a
of
big
pushed
influence. Yeah,
pushed a lot of us down this path of building things in a composable manner.
exactly.
Yeah, and then docs and also just like a lot of custom stuff. Yeah, so you were kind of
Yeah,
rolling. I know I used to
I was
tease you about
rolling.
the Jekyll stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, it served its purpose. It was quite
Yeah.
it worked really, really well, but not
Yes.
very hard to maintain. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's also, it's pre kind of React, pre big JavaScript frameworks. So
Mm,
it's just leveraging vanilla JS. Probably jQuery was in there.
yes.
No, it was definitely in there. And then HTML and SAS at the time, and
Mm.
Jekyll partials and includes and
Oh,
all of that stuff. Yeah.
yeah. And
Um,
Jekyll used to be
yeah.
really slow.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
extremely
absolutely.
slow.
I mean,
Yeah.
and never mind trying to, install Rails on like or Ruby on a Windows machine, and nightmare.
Mm,
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
mm,
Yeah, then we also used Pattern a bit,
yeah.
um, and Zero Height a little bit. I mean, we kind of
Yeah.
went through all of these things, yeah.
I tried,
And
like, I can probably put zero height in here, but I never used it in production at scale. I kind of
yeah,
tried
no,
it
me
out, but
neither.
it
It
kind of felt like
was very much trying out, yeah.
it kind of felt a bit like the way what was the thing? Jeez, now I'm forgetting the name. It was discontinued like literally a year ago. The thing that you'd use for prototyping, was it InVision or what was it called?
Envision,
Yes,
yeah,
kind of felt
Envision
a bit like
Studio, yeah.
InVision. It kind of felt like you would put it in your process because you wanted it in your process, not because it was actually
Yeah,
solving a real problem that you're like, finally, here's a tool to do this. It's like just like, I guess this seems useful. Let me figure out how I can include this. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. Um,
Okay,
yeah, and then Storybook, I guess around the same time as you, Scott, probably
yeah.
around
I think
2018.
Yeah, I think that's when it actually came out for the first time. That's probably V1.
Um,
Um,
let me check
Possibly.
quickly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Storybook. Whoops. There we go. But anyway. Okay, cool.
so
So just to go
Storybook, just in terms of that, Storybook was originally not Storybook. It was Storybook by Airbnb. It wasn't a separate thing. It was
wow,
something that
okay.
Airbnb open sourced. Yeah. So
I
they had
did
developed it
not
for their
know.
internal systems, and they open
Yo,
sourced it.
I did not know that. Okay. That's super interesting. And so the main person that I always see is, what's the guy's like? Is it like David or something? There's that one guy who's like always, since the very first day when I started using it, he's always just been the guy who's I've spoken to him a bit as well. Like in the very early days when no one was using Storybook, he used to be quite active in the Slack channel back in the day. Um, if I can find the blog post or something now, what's the guy's name? But anyway, yeah, like okay, so I don't know, like it's interesting. I'd be curious. Michael. Um, I'd be curious what this mind the pun, the story is behind that. But yeah, okay. Um, so I think let's jump into something a bit more concrete. So let me just also so Pattern Lab, just to show people who aren't familiar with these. Wow, it seems like it's still up.
Is it
Huh.
still there? Wow.
Yeah, there's still
Jeez.
demos. Yeah, so
It's
you
still
can
PHP.
see, yeah, if you've used like Storybook or whatever, you can definitely see the beginnings of something like, what we have today, Storybook, kind of in here. But yeah, it like I think it's also like Pattern Lab and a lot of this other stuff that we mentioned here came from an era where your design system would live parallel to your actual code. and it would still be in code, but like it'd be like this type of thing where you would have an example of the we would have an example of, like, let's just go chip or whatever, and then you'd like copy and paste this and modify it as you need.
Yes.
Whereas I think one of the big things for me with Storybook and why I've stuck with it now for almost a decade is like it is your source of truth for a component. It's
Yeah.
not like you don't have your storybook. Well, you technically have your storybook code insofar that you pass your mock data and whatever in, but like the implementation of the component in Storybook is the same implementation of the component that you're actually using in your code. So what I
Correct.
find is I actually design in Storybook. I can go weeks and weeks without even doing npm run start, like at any time. I'm just like in Storybook for like months on end. Yeah. So like I think that would be my first question to you is, do you actually design directly in Storybook, or what's your process there?
You mean without a? Do you mean design components directly in Storybook in
Yes.
terms of code, or
Yes. Well, I mean like code. I mean like build components.
yeah.
Whether that is from like, because I think most themes that I work on, we have a pretty iterative approach, so we don't do the classic like, here's a mock-up, now convert that into code thing. But where does
Right.
that assembly of the UI components happen?
Yeah, so we do have a very kind of rigorous design process in Figma first. That's all Figma components and library based, and Figma components are turned into code components and stories kind of at the same time, if that makes sense. So
Okay.
they live together. Yeah, the creation is at the same time. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're
All right.
creating a component, you're creating an accompanying story.
Yes. So most projects that I work on, like we create the components usually before we even have any data. A lot of
Right.
times the APIs are not even like available yet. So we just start
I
straight
see.
with mock data. Yeah. But you guys work on a lot of like, go ahead.
No, we work with very well established APIs. It's unusual
Yes.
that we're having to build new ones a lot of the time, unless it's a completely new project, which is the case. But then we're always building APIs kind of a little bit ahead of front end and design. Yeah. We
And
don't
you guys,
design until we know what the data is going to look like.
yes, and you guys work with a lot of legacy systems. So there's
Oh,
only
yes.
so
Yeah.
much you can do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
So,
exactly. And sorry, Schalk, and just on that, we're also very constrained within financial stuff around, legal and compliance and all those kinds of things. So there's nothing changes quickly, put it that way,
yes.
because of the constraints there. Yeah. So
Yes.
you're probably moving much faster than we are.
No, 100%, 100%. Like, I mean, like by the time something gets actually deployed in production, we've probably already done 3 different iterations of it in Storybook, and the name of the thing has probably changed. So it might have started out
Yeah.
as let me just think of a good example. So we recently worked with a thing where it was initially called like a purchase order, and then it changed to a receipt. And like, so even just like us making sense of what is this component and what does it show and what's its purpose, all of that happens in Storybook.
Right.
I think at most we would just go and like sketch some stuff out, like I'm doing right here in FigJam, where we'd be like, cool, okay, this and that, and then they'd probably just do a little code block where we would and we would like like do like, okay, cool, what is the props for this, and we'd go like value string and whatever, and then we'd be like, okay, cool, but like what if you click that and it opens and this thing happens and whatever, and then we're like, okay, cool, we probably need like an open boolean or whatever. So we tend to do that very iteratively.
Right.
And I think it's because the type of stuff that I work on is very experimental in nature. Both projects that I work on is something where there's no direct competitors. in the sense that like that have feature parity. It's just like all of it is just like completely new ground, and someone hasn't built this type of thing before. Whereas you guys,
Right.
it's the opposite. It's like it's almost like you have all this legacy stuff that's almost holding you back from like years and years of like doing financial systems. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah. So you did mention I should have probably like seen if I could actually get some permission to share some stuff. I unfortunately didn't, so I can't show some stuff. But you said you might have some examples.
Well, I've got
That
a
you-
small example
Yeah.
of something that we just started. That's all just internal stuff. There's nothing proprietary
Okay.
in it.
I might quickly dig through my stuff to see. I think there's one thing I can share, which is subtle enough. Well, like not subtle enough, but like it's vague enough that it's complex enough that you can really see the benefit of Storybook, but it's also vague enough that you won't be able to know, okay, what is this for? Or it's just like tabular data. But yeah,
Right.
I think you can
Okay.
start if
Yeah,
you want.
I've got some stuff with just like some, inputs and buttons and date pickers and
Okay.
color stuff. I think it's pretty simple, small stuff, but I think it can show quite nicely the structuring things, and we can maybe
Yes.
talk about that a bit.
Yes. I think maybe
Um,
before we dig into that, we can maybe just look at some of
yeah,
the
let's look
kind
at
of
some of these. Yeah.
examples, and just uh,
Uh,
comment on how similar they are to what we do. I've
yeah.
looked at some of these. The one I've drawn a lot of inspiration from is the. So if you can go on the Storybook website and you can just click showcase there, and you'll find
Yeah.
a ton of. So Adobe Spectrum, SumUp. I have no idea what SumUp is. Uh, whatever this is. Okay, diabetes care. I don't know. Superbase. Interesting.
Yeah.
Superbase
The
UI.
Superbase one is
Yeah.
I think I think it's a very good one. Yeah.
Is it? I've
Uh,
drawn. It's been a while since I looked at it, but I've really drawn a lot of inspiration from the BBC one, which seems like
oh,
the link is
oops.
broken. Oops. Let me just go
Oh
to the
dear.
GitHub. But like, because they are using it, I know that. Okay,
Oh, it's been
interesting.
archived. Interesting.
No longer maintained. We've recently migrated to a legacy folder in our single. What are the names of these things? Smoch. It's like Warhammer 40k. Okay, okay. I'm not going to try. It's a pity because I used to like use theirs quite a bit in terms of for my own inspiration for how I approach things, especially so they kind of also use very much like a container presentational like pattern, which
Mm.
I kind of really use quite extensively. Although people claim you like for some reason because Dan Abramoff said like more than 10 years ago hooks replaces it that you shouldn't use it. I'm not convinced. I think it's one of the most powerful patterns in React. But anyway, okay, so let's look at the Superbase UI one. So I should probably do a pull request to pull the BBC one down. Cool. Yes, I look at this this little spinner here for so much of my life. Yeah, cool. So yeah, like obviously, I'd also be curious whether you guys actually put textual documentation or stuff in Storybook at all
Yes.
or not. Yeah.
Yes,
So
we do.
we used to use TypeDoc quite a bit,
Hmm.
but man, it's just so not user friendly.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely
and
agree.
yes,
Um,
so,
but a storybook have made it much easier now with MDX that you can use.
yes. So we used to use TypeDoc, and like with TypeDoc, you get a lot of stuff out of the box for free. So they have a good
Mm,
example here, where it's like cool, card A, and then like
yeah,
how do you use this, whatever. But like I think at some point it just felt like we're just wrestling with TypeDoc to give it like
agreed.
what we
Yeah,
need. And I think then
yeah,
we just said, like, screw it. We're just going to do our documentation, especially now with like LLMs and whatever, it's easy enough to just treat your documentation as text. And you literally go and write out, these are the props, this is how you should use it. Be careful if you do this, it's going to throw an error and whatever. And we generally co-locate it with our tests. And I'd also be curious, like, how you guys use Storybook. We primarily use it for like testing purposes. So we would have, so they, yeah, it seems like they kind of do something similar, but we would also do the same where we actually don't even use. Do you guys use the controls at all?
Yes, we do.
Oh, really? We don't use the controls because I think it's like for testing purposes, this is nice for playing around. But I think in our case, it's just like, cool. We just want to check. Because I've played, I'd also be curious what your thoughts are on like things like Jest and geez, like
Playwright and so on.
Yeah, and you know, there used to be Enzyme and React testing library by and what's his name? She's not gonna forgot his name.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
The Epic Web guy, the Epic React, Epic Web. How did I just forget his name? Like the Mormon guy. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes. I can't believe I've forgotten his name.
Oh, you're gonna Google it now?
Yes. Kent Dodds.
Yeah, Kent Dodds. Sorry, Kent.
Jeez.
Like, by the off chance that you actually watch this.
He was the guru for a long time.
Yeah, and I think he was one of the core people on React Testing Library. But
yes,
yeah, so
he started it. Yeah,
I think I've oscillated a lot between, you know, automated testing and manual testing, automated testing, manual testing, and I think I've kind of settled eventually on just eyeball testing. So what we would usually do is we would have a document like this, which would just like maybe even include screenshots or whatever, that would just say, cool, you know, like the alert, you know, this is kind of, you know, there's like these 8 test cases, this is what should happen, make sure if you click this, and like if you work on it, you obviously don't just randomly test up, but if you work on a component and you make changes to it, then just go through them, follow the instructions, see, cool, if you click here, this happens, this should show that little icon. So we just make a list of things that you should check. And I think in the long run, that has just been like so much easier to maintain than any type of automated testing. I'm curious whether you guys do automated testing. I continually thought like, okay, this time I'm going to do it right, but I've never been able to get a good return on investment for time spent on setting up automated testing and maintaining automated testing.
Yeah, it's the maintenance that's the big headache we've generally found. We do automated testing, but that's handled by our QAs. Yeah,
that's probably end to end.
And it's end to end, but they also do visual testing. What we have been experimenting a bit with is chromatic.
Yes, but it's expensive, man.
No, it is expensive, but you get quite a good. The free tier is pretty generous. Yeah. So yeah, we have been looking into that. But again, it's another thing to maintain every single time.
Yes.
We used to run automated visual testing on every time you did a PR. And we would literally be creating snapshots and comparing them in our build processes. But we've kind of abandoned that because again, the amount of time it takes is just insane. Yeah.
And there's always like one little thing that's a false positive, and you cannot get it to go away. For some reason, the font is not rendering correctly, and you spent the last 3 hours figuring out why the font isn't rendering. But it's actually working in your real product, but for some reason in your test, it's not working.
Exactly. And you get cross-platform false positives, and it's
a pain in the butt. Yeah, so we also run Storybook through BrowserStack as well,
right?
Which is nice. So we generally just kind of take tests, and we kind of just open it in the full window. Just chuck this in browser stack or whatever. So
Yeah.
you did mention Chromatic. So Chromatic, for those that don't know, Chromatic's actually the team that maintains and builds Storybook. So the product behind
That's
Storybook
right.
is Chromatic. So they offer a service for you to do like visual regression testing and so forth. And yeah, the Storybook, you can just plug that in directly. But it does, as mentioned, it does get expensive quite quickly. You get 5,000
Sure it
free
does.
ones, but like in terms of the amount of Storybook work I do, like I run out of this like on in the first week. But it's not nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
S-
What is nice about Chromatic, in terms of our process, is that it also integrates with Figma.
oh really?
So
How
you
so?
can embed your stories with your Figma design.
Oh,
So
so then you can compare
you get
it,
a
or
nice visual reference from your design system in Figma as well,
yes. Okay,
which is
that's
not
really
which
nice.
is nice. But that depends on your process. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So it usually generates something like this, where you get like all these screenshots and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. We used to use Wraith. I don't know if what's it,
I
Wraith.
I
Um,
haven't used it. I've heard of it.
yeah. So that's but that was a pain by BBC as well. That was a pain in the butt. Is it still being maintained? Last commit was like 8
No,
years ago.
I would say no.
Uh, yeah, then the other one is Backstop. When I was at Runway Sale, we used to use Backstop extensively.
Right.
But it's like, like at some point, it just takes more work maintaining this than just
Yeah.
manually checking it with your eyeball. Um,
Yep.
and then there are other competing services. There's Percy, I know as well. Um, which is kind of like Chromatic. There's another one that a lot of people also use, but yeah, um, yeah, and then you get into like end-to-end testing and whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, for this type of thing, so let's maybe start there. Like, so someone who's learning about Storybook now for the first time, or who actually like is already doing testing, um, what would be, or let's maybe take a step back, and like what would, if someone isn't using Storybook, because Storybook comes with its own complexity,
It
and I've
does.
seen this like time and time again, like especially teams that I work on and they want to start using Storybook. um, all right, Oliver, I'll respond later. um, Shout out to Oliver if you're watching. um, uh, so like it does bring a lot of complexity, and if your project isn't structured for like a Storybook like approach, um, then it's going to be a pain to keep Storybook up to date.
Yes.
So like what would you say would be one of the reasons why you might want to consider Storybook? So from my side,
Um,
I sorry. So from my
no,
side,
go ahead.
just like yeah, from my side, I would say that um, I think Storybook is amazing if you work in projects where the endpoints are not available in their final form by the time you start writing code. Um, and also where the endpoints and like the API and stuff like really change very dramatically, um, and in big ways, on the turn of a dime, because then you can still continue actually. So when the like or when the endpoint completely changes and your entire app breaks, now like if you want to make your colors, want to add a blue button or a green button, like your npm run start isn't like completely broken. So you can
Mm.
completely work against mock data, without even knowing what's happening at the endpoint. Like a lot of times, I remember also when I was at Runway Sale, like, but that was kind of like back, like old school PHP stuff. Like like someone would do something and the staging server would fall over the weekend, or whatever, and then you're working on Saturday and you can't do any work. Like you can't like even like change CSS or whatever because the database has fallen over, or the staging, the fake database. So it kind of frees you from that. And like I also like that if you want to do test-driven development on the front end, I would say the Storybook I think is the only one I would really 100% recommend. Everything else I would see as nice to haves.
Agreed.
I wouldn't even
I agree.
consider like Jest or any of that stuff unless you're doing something that's very algorithm heavy. But I wouldn't even consider any of that stuff. I wouldn't even consider like snapshot testing or whatever if I haven't first got a proper like Storybook set up in my process or whatever. Yeah. But I'd be curious what you would say, because once again, like it sounds like the type of projects that you work on is quite different from the type of ones that I work on.
Yeah. So I mean, I think for us, we very heavily design in Figma. We're very design heavy as a process, but we don't regard Figma as a source of truth.
Yes.
We regard Storybook and our front end as the source of truth. And so in that case, the old which we say all the time that gets people annoyed is that what was that quote? Design system is just a suggestion.
If a design system is in Figma and not in code, then it's a design suggestion, not a design system.
Yes.
But that's true. It's true. Like then it's up to whoever makes use of it to decide if they want to follow it or not.
Yeah, I absolutely.
People hate that
kind of
quote.
a mantra of sorts. I know they do. Yeah,
it gets the people going. Oh, geez, sorry. Let me
that
just
doesn't mean that doesn't mean your Figma processes and so on are unimportant.
No,
which people tend to take that as meaning, but that's quite the opposite, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things that Storybook allows you to do that we find very useful is like rapid prototyping. Yeah.
So when you say rapid prototyping, what would that process look like? So you would do your thing in Figma.
We do our thing in Figma, right? We'd have all our components. That's where we start. We're following atomic design principles. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later.
Oh, so you already have a lot of stuff that you're extending. Okay.
Yeah.
That you're kind of like extending into something. Yes.
Yeah.
See, so I would do this in this. I would do this in Storybook. But I think it's also like the nature of like I exclusively work with in-house teams, whereas you guys work with clients, so you have to show them something visual. Whereas like we can just like there's a lot more leeway for us to just be like, trust me, bro. Because like you work with these people all day and you're like, okay, cool. Just go wild, do your thing. Yeah.
No, we have to go through like serious review processes all the time. Yeah. So one of the nice things about Storybook is that if you're working, for example, in Next, and we mostly work in Next, there's out-of-the-box support for the Next app router, for example. So you can actually do actual, you can just pull in your existing routes, which is fantastic because your stories are living within your are living in exactly the same place as your app components, and you can just build up a page in Storybook by importing your stories. It's fantastic.
So I just want to get all the docs. I just want to show because there's a ton of like integrations out of the box. I've actually used Storybook for a real project with web components. And also React Native. Like it is actually, if anything, I think it's a much more compelling case for React Native than web stuff.
That's an excellent point, actually, because how hard is it to do things on an actual device if you can just emulate them in the browser really easily?
Exactly. And also, like, even if you do them on your device or you do them in an emulated thing, it takes so long to build React Native code
Exactly.
compared to
Every
like your
single
hot
time.
module reloading that you have in the
Yeah.
browser. So
Yeah.
what I also do, okay, I'm gonna see now. Yeah, maybe when
To
you
the,
share examples, I'll put some stuff aside that I can share without breaking any NDAs. But what I also do is I comment out all my stories in my main. I don't do the glob thing where it's like, okay, grab everything in my source folder or whatever. I have my components there and I just comment them out and uncomment them and so forth. And I'm always just working on one thing at a time, because it can get quite slow if you're loading
yes, it can.
everything. Yes.
No,
So I'm like, okay,
absolutely.
I'm
Because
working on this thing and I'm just commenting everything else. And then when you control S, it's like instant, like
yeah,
you save and
yeah,
it shows, save and it shows. Yeah.
yeah. Good points. Yes, you're right. Because if you are just doing everything, it's building every single thing every
Yes.
single time. Yeah.
And it's
So
strange to me that they still don't have like a flag or something that you can use to say only like watch this component or whatever, or this story.
yeah.
Don't show any of the other ones. But I just do it manually in the config file. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Sorry, we wanted to
what was I saying?
let's look at the let's look at oh no, we did look at this a little bit.
No, we looked at that, yeah.
Yeah,
So the only thing I wanted to show about this was not necessarily their controls and all of that, but how that's just nicely structured, yeah. And Storybook makes it so easy to create a structured system for your stories, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, they're going via a use case, yeah, here, which I wouldn't necessarily do, but that's fine. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Whichever works for you.
I'd be curious how you would do it, because this is how I would generally do it. I'd go I'd have menu, and then I'd have like single item, and I'd maybe have small amount of items, and then I'd have like massive amount of way. I actually like stress test it to see like what happens if there's like 200 items in here, and then I have it like with an one that's selected, or like I would definitely do it, but I wouldn't use this. It doesn't seem like they actually use it really either.
Go to docs. Go to the docs.
I think it generates it automatically.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've switched mine off because I don't want any. Yeah. See, they're not really making use.
They're not using those to the best of their ability.
I don't think they're using it at all. I think they are actually. It's just getting automatically generated based on their prompts.
So there is now in Storybook, there's that auto docs.
Yes.
So
I explicitly tell it to not do it. Because we literally don't do these as things that you can play around with. It's literally just like an output, and this is like, this should behave in this way. This is so like when you're testing it, this is okay. This thing should not overflow, or this thing it should split it up, and there's maybe like a checklist to say like, okay, make sure that it is split up or whatever.
Okay, right. So we actually we kind of have all of these as small items or whatever, but then we also in Storybook we build out actual page templates.
Yeah, it's same here as well. I'm hoping I can actually
see
show
things
one.
in context. Yeah.
We even mock all the way up to our services.
Us too. Yeah, I can.
I'd be curious how you do that. Yeah. Okay. Like maybe while you share your screen, maybe while you share, like I'll see if I can line some things up on my side that doesn't break my NDAs. So.
Unfortunately, I can't show any ones where we're using real data, where we using APIs and stuff, because those are all behind firewalls.
Oh no, I can show for us because ours is like the classic faker stuff where it's like fabulous green wooden shoes.
Okay.
Or amazing
or Star Wars characters.
No, we have the classic faker ones where it's like fabulous metal sandwich, or like it's just like combining random adjectives and nouns and
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so I can
Let
maybe
me.
okay, so I'm just going to say up front, and I'll then in exchange treat it as a call out, the sponsorship. Let's say it's a sponsorship from my two clients, so from Pattern and from Palmetric. So I'm going to show some of that, like hopefully stuff that's super general purpose, but I'll also maybe just do a plug for them to, like, in exchange, to go check them out and support them. But like I'll do that while Justin is spinning up his stuff.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, you can go. I'm gonna line the stuff up on my side while you're doing that.
Okay. So this I can show because we just started working on it, and it's just an internal thing. Thanks, Schalk. Yeah. So if this is a next app, we've installed Storybook, and we customize it a little bit. We include some fonts and blah 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 blah. But that's
Okay, zoom in a
and
little bit, just.
will it zoom in on the? Okay. Let me get rid of the terminal here.
Yeah.
Okay, is that
just
a
take
bit
our
more?
pictures away quickly? Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I mean,
Someone's going to copy paste that brand image to figure out who this is. At basic
this is
4.
this is NML, so it's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. So we've just got a little theme that we always use just because it's fun. That's got our logo and whatnot. So you can customize it like that. But yeah, the important bit is here. You'll see within our components we have atoms,
classic
molecules, organisms, kind of classic atomic design.
Yes.
And then we might have buttons, and then we would have our button, and then we would have our button story, and so on. So for inputs, we've got our checkbox. Each of these gets their own story, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into too much detail. And you can see there, like a date picker would sit in an organism because it's using multiple things. Internal nav. This is still very much in progress. So there's a lot of stuff where we've kind of built out a nav, but we haven't done the story yet. Yeah.
Yes.
But just to show what this looks like in our storybook. Sure. Now I'm showing the one that's under NDA. Damn it. Anyway.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. So we usually just go and do a little quick intro page. And this is just MDX. It's super easy to use. It's just an intro thing, and you can do whatever MDX stuff you want to do there. So you can use Markdown, you can add HTML, whatever, and you can add a bunch of styles and so on. But that's not particularly important. And you'll see here we follow that structure of, so we've got atoms, molecules, organisms, and then a style guide. In the style guide, we put our colors and our typography, and everything else follows this structure. So if we look at a button, for example, you'll see here we just give, in your title, in Storybook, it's as easy as that to create a category. Yeah. You just, whatever, and then the name. So, if we go and look at a organism, you can see that it's organism date picker. So it really is that simple to create structures. So we mimic the same structure as we have in the actual code base.
Okay.
And yeah, there's our button, for example. It's got a hover state, it's got an icon, etc. And in our docs, so we like to use a lot of the args. Schalk, I think you said you don't really.
No, we don't even do that. We don't even do that. We literally just do export, we just export the story as a component straight from there. So I would just go export const, and I would just say basic, and there you go.
Right.
We don't even, we just export a component. We just do a named export.
That's
we don't even do that configuration stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we usually, I'll show maybe in a second, because we usually wrap our stuff in kind of like layers of like service injection and stuff as needed.
Right. Got
Yeah.
it. Yeah. I mean, we do arcs, and if we think it's required, we'll add some docs. Yeah.
Mm.
But I mean, here you can see we can switch these out.
Yeah, I see. So that part is probably like very nice for you because I think that's kind of like the type of stuff you're trying to do. Whereas we just completely disregard this. We don't care about this docs page. Whereas I think you're trying to build more something like a traditional design system.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas in ours, it's just like we just want to use it for visual tasting.
Right.
And any design system-ish stuff that emerged from it is a side effect of building our UI in Storybook.
I see.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a card, for example, that's using, and this will pull in our
Nice.
icon systems and so on. And we got different sizing. So we can check that. We can add the links, etc. This is supposed to be showing all our icons that are available, but of course that's going to break because I'm showing it, right?
Yes.
Date pickers, yeah, and then colors. So this is just what we actually do here is.
Is that the built-in color?
No, it's not.
Okay.
So there is a built-in color one. We don't use it though. We actually, so because we are using Tailwind for this. We actually just import our colors from Tailwind, and we just map them.
Okay.
So if we change our Tailwind colors, this will automatically change. Yeah. So that's just that. But
interesting. I see. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just it's just looking at the Tailwind config, running through them, and then just building this out with the variable name and the color, and just rendering it. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
It still needs some work because there isn't much order to it. Yeah. I'm just going to quickly go to something that I can show without going into any detail of an actual project. So you can see here, this is like super big, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's ours usually gets even bigger than that, which is why I usually. So quickly go to your code. I just want to look at your config for your Storybook. So I'll show you what I tend to do. So the main.js in .storybook. Yeah. So what I do there, yeah, see, so you just treat it as one big glob. I have my stories there, and then I just do control / I like comment uncomment as I want.
Right. So you would have like blah blah source app. No, sorry.
Whatever, like button or whatever, and then I just like commented
uncommented.
No, like I would literally on a per story basis.
Yeah, components,
and that
atoms,
seems
buttons,
but like Copilot usually, like you type like about 3 parts, and Copilot writes all the rest for you.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. See, it's starting to do it for me. See, that's smart actually, because then you're not building everything every single time. Yeah.
Yes, and like that also makes it really fast.
So if
like the reloading.
Yeah. So if I do that, and then I just rerun this,
it should only have that one story.
Only have that one story.
And also, like, if anything else breaks Storybook, it's like that's none of my business. You fix your stuff. That's also one of the benefits. You probably got that path wrong.
Yeah, no doubt. But I see what you said. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It might not be that big of an issue anymore, but I started doing it initially because, like, at some point, Storybook was really slow. But I think they have sped it up quite considerably over time.
Well, I mean, look, we've only got about 12 stories so far in this. And if we run this now, you'll see see how many modules it actually loads.
Exactly. Yeah, that thing. I'd spend my life
Like,
looking at that little thing.
it's like 9,000 modules or something.
Yeah, building.
For like just a tiny amount of stories.
Yes.
Yeah. So ultimately, something would look more like this. Yeah. And then we'd have all these pages in here. Okay. That put everything together. Okay, I'm just going to close that now because I can't really show anymore.
Yes, I'm just spinning mine up. Give me 1 second. I can maybe, okay. So I think maybe what I can do is, okay. Oh no, okay. Flip, yeah, see, we were busy working on this. I wish I could actually show, maybe I can show a bit of this. Okay, so I might be able to pull out some other examples at some point. Okay, so let me add my screen. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so basically, so just giving credit where credit is due. So this is for Palmetrics. I'm pretty sure they won't mind me sharing. So it's a tool for tracking, like if you have a Takealot store or whatever, and you're selling on like Takealot, you're selling on like Shopify, Amazon, whatever, having all the data in one place and also setting up like processes and workflows and stuff and saying that lots of like things like, like you can set your price, you can look at like what are your competitors' prices and then it automatically updates it to be cheaper than your competitors or whatever. Or, like there's a lot of automation and stuff you can configure saying like if this condition is true, then change the price to that, or get an alert when the stock drops below this or whatever. So it's just like a range of like tools, like generating invoices and stuff and whatever, seeing like fees, a breakdown of fees. So yeah, also like our current landing page is absolutely horrible. So yeah, it's actually shocking like how bad this page is, but I think they've just been getting so much clients regardless, just because they're building such a valuable product. So I'm obviously not involved. I'm like involved on the actual product side. But I can maybe show one thing. So obviously, no surprises here. We need like ways to show cool, what store, like things related to stores. So we have Takealot, Shopify, WooCommerce, and Amazon. And then this is just the 4 variations. This thing is called a logo icon. There's small, medium, and large. But also there are things that are channel specific. So for example, you have things that is like, this is your Takealot, this is the Takealot warehouse or whatever, or this is the Takealot selling price. But then there are other things that are more custom, like you can add your own like warehouse and like stuff like that, or set your own price that is different from the Takealot price. And in those cases, this just falls back to the larger cases. It just uses it splits it accordingly. The word, and in the small case, it just takes the first letter. And here's some documentation explaining, it's a primary means by which you specify third-party channels, marketplaces. This is the props it takes. It takes a name, saying here that if you pass one of these 4 names, it's going to use that icon instead of generating a custom one like this. And also here's like test, so should include examples where non-integration letters are used. Note smaller size should only have a single letter, whereas bigger size should have 2. So you can have a look and you can be like, cool, okay, yeah, that is true, and so forth. So if you're working on this is a very small component I deliberately chose. Like they are really massive things, yeah. And then you can just check, like if you've worked on this, is this still the case? Is this still the case? And you're like, cool, okay, I didn't break anything catastrophic. Okay, so that is kind of, and then I did speak about commenting the stuff out. So, like kind of, I actually end up doing something like this. So where I actually just make it like arrays, so components, views, features, and so forth, and then I just map over them.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and I would
That's
then,
very neat.
let's say components, and I would just like say, cool, I want this one and I want that one, or whatever.
Very
Uh,
nice. That's very cool.
yes. So cool. So I can show something a bit more. It's a pity that I can't show. I'll maybe see if I can. But I think we're actually in the process of. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get myself in trouble. All right. So this is the
Mm.
pattern stuff. So um, so just also a shout out to Pattern. So Pattern has kind of sponsored some FedSA stuff in the past. So you can check them out at Pattern Retail. So they are kind of like a ERP system being used by a lot of like, the big retailers in South Africa, like Woolworths and whatever, to kind of not only stock management, but allocation of stock, like figuring out. And so it uses a lot of machine learning under the hood. Like I actually think the product team is the smallest. I think actually the data team is astronomical in terms of just like machine, like figuring out, cool, based on how your other products of the same type sold over this same period, whatever, how is this, how should you divide it up, what store should get what, and so forth. And yeah, it's just a general purpose product for kind of managing like your ERP and everything in one place. Yeah, so also like just support them if like if you're finding the FEDSA stuff valuable, because they sponsor us here and there as well. Okay, so basically, so the thing that we're currently working on, probably those Teams messages that you saw in the corner there. So we're kind of busy working on a general purpose table to kind of show stuff. So we have lots of different tables, but we're kind of in the process of standardizing things into like a general purpose table. And so basically, I think I have it open here. Yes. Okay. So like, because I think this is a good one to show because it's quite a meaty one. Okay. So we
Yeah.
kind of have the actual cells of the table like
Yeah.
in their own, because they're sufficient enough to have their own tests. So then,
Yes.
like, and you'll see, there's no controls or no nothing down here. We literally just treat this as, like, check if this works, does it do the thing? So obviously, this is a general cell. This is a selectable cell. So you hover over it and, like you can click it. We also use alerts to kind of
Hmm.
just, in our storybook tests, to just confirm that. And then, like, highlight text. So highlight the word goodbye, put an image in the cell. Okay, just lorem pick some stuff and put some custom stuff in a cell. Have a, whoops, this should actually be green indicator, but have an indicator in there. Currency, percentage, a basic header, and so forth. And then you can
Yeah.
actually look at, let's close parametrics. Then you can actually look at, let me just close as much as possible. Components, table. So here you can actually see so this is what let me just change that to indicator. So we generally, like, we create like our base props, and then we just we just kind of modify the base props like for the specific cases that we want to test. So here, so this is
Nice.
all the base props. So here's a basic one, selectable. We just pass an on click. So you'll see here the on click is null by default. Here we just change the value, and we say highlight goodbye wherever it comes in there, and so forth. So we then just modify the bits that for that specific test. Yeah, effects, prefix. Here's a more involved one, and so forth. Oh, that should also, like, yeah, you should be able to. Okay, never mind. Okay. So then we kind of have the cell stuff nailed down. And like I said, cells like almost
Mm.
a thing on itself. There's sufficient complexity there. Then we have the
Yeah.
actual table itself. So you have a basic version of the table that you can kind of drag around and whatever. Yeah, and you can, once again, like here, you can see this is so we kind of use a very strong, well, like we kind of use a kind of a dispatch kind of approach, where components just dispatch actions. We don't really use like on click, on this, on that, because you end up with like a trillion like handlers that you have to pass into a single component. So we just pass a single handler in, and and it just dispatches actions up. So almost like you do with Redux, but we just have our own one, and that also makes it easy for like this type of things, because then we just alert what it dispatches, and we can say user select cell, whatever coordinates and so forth. Yeah. And then we can pass like, is it underlined, whatever. I don't want to go into the props for this too much. Okay, but so the basic, and then like the empty, like this is, and we check like curl, this dispatches, user resets all filters. So this is everything that get pushed up to the container. And then if everything is loading, and you can just also just drag it around, see if all of this works, all of this still works, and whatever. If partially, so here we just automatically have it. I think in the story, if you look, we literally, we tell like this is how big the story thing for this is. Okay, this is quite a core component, but I think in that specific one, what is that? That is partial loading. So here we just say, we just literally check like every second row, every odd row, just return null. So in other words, it's loading.
Okay, that's smart.
Yeah, just to test great. Like, okay, if everything is loading, if it's partially loading. Then, okay, so list. So here we have virtual. So the basic, here's like the table with virtualization. So this is just a regular one without virtualization. So we use TanStack virtual. For this, I used the React virtualized before, and it is a pain. Like TanStack virtual is so nice to work with. I don't know if you guys do any virtualization.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, what do you guys use?
Yeah, I'm the same as you've been using. We need to look into this.
Yeah, React. Oh, so React. Yeah, what's it? React virtualized is such a pain in the butt. What's nice about TanStack is like it actually doesn't do any CSS. It's literally just, so just to quickly, I don't want to go too much. This is literally it. This thing here. And it just allows you to get things. So then you set your own like offsets and whatever based on it. So you can get the total size, and you can, like, it's just methods that you call. So you can see if you map over it, you can get, okay, where does this row start? Where does this row end? And so forth. So it doesn't have any CSS. So it's really cool. Yeah. Nice. You have to check it out. Like if you look at, for example, this example, like check how straightforward it is. It's only this, and then this is the extent of it. Compared to, like, yeah, I don't know. I have nightmares about React virtualized. But yeah, but this is quite new. I think it's not even like a year old. But anyway, so connection lost. I think now I need to keep my wits about me so I don't open the wrong stuff. Yeah, so this is what you're using, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a bit old school. I'd be curious to see when I was last updated for real. Where's the source folder? Source has been about 3 months. Not that bad, I guess. But
React 19 support.
Yeah, but it is a bit old school. He even said himself, you shouldn't use this. You should use his new library, React window. But yeah, okay, cool. So we have the list. So this is just virtualization. So you can, and it's super speedy. Then we also have virtualization with empty checkboxes, and like you just check, it fires the event. And then when we want to test specific behavior, so for example, the lazy loading, then, and this is why we do this approach, because then we just mock a parent component on top of it. So here, we literally just export this, export const list lazy loading. And it automatically turns it into a test. I think it's just the Pascal case, it just puts spaces in between the capitals. And like here, we just have like a little piece of mocked state and mocked selected and so forth. And we just wire it up to this little piece of state. So you get some basic interactivity. Like, so for example, here, and we also just so that you get like, and you'll see we also just like log that the dispatch actually happened.
Right.
And you'll see also if I scroll down, the same, like it just logs table request, new page from rendering action, payload page 5, 6, just to confirm that like it's actually sending that up to outside of the component. And then also like we have a bit of debouncing, so you can go like, and it doesn't actually, it doesn't actually request any pages until you stop for like a second, and then it like requests everything it needs.
Nice.
Yeah, and you can go up as well and so forth. Yeah, so this is a pretty resilient component.
Oh yeah.
Then we have like other versions of it where you can go sideways. So and so like this is the exact same thing here, where like there's actually stuff outside it that can influence it. So if you look at grid, we have like set size, and I just mock like little divs and random buttons and stuff here at the top. This actually isn't part of the table, but like like increasing the size of the tables,
right.
and
Cool.
also this
That's nice.
like walk through all the stuff in here as well. What's also nice is we've actually bound it to keyboard as well, so I can just use my keyboard keys to just walk through the table. And then there's a version as well with the lazy loading. So if I scroll down, and then I can do like stupid stuff like do this and then go sideways and see what happens. But then if I go back, it should have. Oh, this one has the key navigation disabled. Okay. And then we have like this view as well, where you can kind of get the carousel view of it. You can also like just step through it, make it bigger, make it smaller, whatever. Card view as well, and so forth. Same principle. And like what's nice about why this is a good, and here's all the documentation.
Right.
Yeah, as you can see, it's quite excessive, and you can have like examples here. We explain, okay, what do arrows do, like, and so forth. And we've increasingly just moved everything to Storybook. We're not even doing JS doc anymore. We're literally just moving everything to our MDX file for our table like documentation.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's also just easier reading.
Sorry.
Yes.
Scott, can you just show that that MDX document and how you construct that and where it goes? Yeah.
So we
using
have
Storybook blocks, eh?
Yes. So here's the actual stories. It's a big file, but there's a lot. It's like and then there's like a MDX file as well, which is actually literally written out text. Like this.
This is great.
Yeah.
I think something to mention is that
generally I give the juniors, like the juniors generally do this as part of like if they haven't used a component before, I'm like, okay, go over the documentation. If there's anything that's unclear, ask me. You'll see here, like Oliver from Merlin 6 days ago. He added this. Add examples for visual modifiers.
I think something just to mention here is Storybook blocks, which is a super easy way to render it. You can do anything in MDX with it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So that are you talking about? This is the MDX stuff.
Yeah, and then just importing the meta stuff.
Oh, you mean I just use the meta. Like there's like a lot of other.
There's lots of other stuff. There's subtitles, titles,
and like Canvas and
Canvas,
like
and
Arg
you can
stable.
Customize.
But once again, like like the same with like I don't know if you guys use the Arg stables, but it felt like I was just wrestling with it to give it to me the way I wanted, where we just said F it, screw it, like let's just write out props. Okay, there's a variant prop, there's arrows props, there's an empty prop, this is what it is, here's an example of how to use it, and so forth.
Right. It's I think either approach works. It depends on what you feel is the best use of your time. I guess we do a combination.
The thing is, it's just like I think it's like it always ended up being at a place where it just becomes unreadable, and then I have to write it anyway because it doesn't fit in that little table anymore.
Yeah,
Or
I
it
know.
just gives it to me.
Yeah,
It doesn't give it
yeah.
to me as an enum. It just says like, oh, it uses the variant type, and I'm like, whatever. I'm
I
like,
do
cool, yeah.
agree
What
with
is the
you.
variant type? It would
Yeah,
literally
I
just
do.
go like, it's variant, and the type is variant. Be
Yeah,
like, thanks, bro.
I
I
do
guess.
agree. I do agree.
Yeah.
You have to document
Oops.
exactly what those arcs are, and yeah, it does get very
Yes, and it does
long-winded.
like
Yeah,
it's also nice being able to like do this type of thing and so
yeah.
forth. And we've actually like so I've also pulled this one in. This is also kind of like so we kind of use this concept of entities, which is kind of I guess what you would like what would be classes in some like in a code base that doesn't hate classes as much as we do. So we kind of use this concept of entities, which is basically just modules that have, it has like static stuff, it has like methods, it has like types and stuff that you can pull in, and we also
Hmm.
document that in Storybook. We used to do that in, no, not right now. We used to do that in TypeDoc as well, but it's just like it's such a pain, man, and it never gives it to you in the format that you want it.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that maybe I can show something else because I would really love to show. Let me see if I can do layout quickly. Layout should be simple enough that um, I shouldn't get in any trouble for it. Components. No, it's actually not a component. It's a. Oh, okay, I can't. But like so maybe I can show an example of it. So one thing that I do tend to do quite a bit is, oh no, I think I'm getting into dangerous territory here. Let me
Yeah,
try.
maybe.
Let me try Palmetrics maybe. Um, so like one thing that I like is I really started getting the habit of doing composition. So like having placeholders where other things can go, not including that in the story itself. So I have this reusable component. So I have this testing utility that I use. Let me just quickly see if I can, if I, let's go products, views. The only reason why I'm more comfortable sharing this is because this is B2C. So you can sign up for a Palmetrics account and see all of this stuff. It's not, it's not like I'm giving any like hidden UI stuff away. So for example, in details layout, yes, this is a good one. So we pass JSX in. So I'm a very big fan of composing React, passing JSX straight in. I think a lot of my thinking around this was very much inspired by, I don't know if you've read Advanced React by Nadia. I can't pronounce the surname. Nadia Makarevici. Sorry,
I
Nadia.
haven't.
Like it's a really good book. I really recommend it. But it kind of really like kind of encouraged me to step up my kind of composition game because you get
Hmm.
so much saving in terms of re-renders if you just push JSX down as props. So but anyway, so in this example, there isn't so like this is where that thing would go, this is where that thing would go, this is where that, and obviously it's not part of the test. Like the responsibility of this is just to lay the things out. So then I just have
Right.
this placeholder thing. Maybe I can quickly show this. Details, layout. Yeah, let's give it a try because I think this would be a really good example. Or let me just think about another pricing section. Yeah, let's do. I think pricing section, integration cards might be a good one. Yeah, let's do integration cards. So, um, yeah, it's obviously been a while since I like. I'm busy cleaning up a lot of code, so this is not going to be ideal. But let's see, because I think I would love to show that aspect. So what is this? This is view. No, I think this is features. Yeah, source features, products, and yeah, let's do integration cards. Yeah, integration cards. All right, let's see. We can spin that up. App, because this has been like a game changer for me, and I would love to show it. It's because I think like in the very early days of using Storybook, I would just like literally build the entire UI in Storybook. So that would
Right.
mean like at some point, like your lower level things become redundant because oh jeez, did I not? Didn't find it. Can't resolve source features. Let's see, source features, products. If I can just spell integration, that would be great. No, this is
Looks right. Views, integration,
products views. Oh, it's a
products views.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's try that again. So, like your things would get too coupled, So now all of a sudden, like your component that does your layout, like how do you test that without putting the stuff in it? You can't test it's like by itself. So I've created this placeholder. Ah, geez, I don't think I'm going to be able to show it, man. What is going on here? Let me just see. Source, features, products, views, integration cards. Did I spell that?
Views, product details, integration cards. You're missing product details.
Yes.
Maybe details.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Maybe I can even just. Okay. Okay. Let me just see. So, come on.
No stories are defined.
It's probably a typo. Integration.
Features.
Arena. Integration card story. What am I? I'm obviously. Wait. Integrations cards. Oh, okay. Fingers crossed. This time it's going to work. Like 10 millionth time is the charm.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. So if you look here, yes, see this thing. I'm spending my life looking at this.
Sure.
Yeah, this is just for one. For one. But some of this stuff is flipping complex because I think it's also like a lot of this stuff is like software in the browser. It's not like your traditional just like CRUD or whatever. Like you're actually doing a lot of crazy stuff in the DOM and so forth. So I think my components tend to be quite heavy as well. Yeah, see, here's where we get the random faker.js stuff for incredible softball.
Okay, softball.
Yes. So you'll see. So here, it just like this is the sidebar, and this is summary, and this is sections. So I can test everything as if it is there, and I just have this helper component, this helper method that I call. That is just testing.placeholder, and I pass a name, and I actually just use like MD5 hashing to generate a unique color based on the name. So if I were to change this to whatever, it'll actually create another color. And so this makes it easy for me to just say, put a placeholder in, this is where this thing is going to go.
Right.
Yeah. there. And
Very
it makes
cool.
sure they're different colors and whatever. So this is worked really nice thus far.
Mhm.
And yeah, and so obviously, so here also another thing, like you have all this stuff up here. We didn't even touch this, but you can like actually go, okay, small mobile, you know. So this
Oh
is,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
know,
that stuff's
large
super
mobile
useful.
and so forth. So
Yeah, they
let's
all,
see,
and
like,
you can, yeah,
yeah. So
that's
obviously
very, very
here it doesn't
useful.
have the swiping, but like on an actual touch device, you would swipe this sideways instead
Yeah.
of actually, and the same here. Obviously, you won't have these bars
Mm.
instead of it. And then we have like, okay, cool. Here is cool. Like these all have like good states. Product is currently listed for purchase on Takealot, so you can see your products. You can be like, okay, so maybe in return, this is a nice advert for Palmetrics. So if you're selling on any of these stores and you would like something cool like this, where you can just get a overview of kind of like your products and whatever, check out Palmetrics. But yeah, so we can see, okay, like if alternative, so here it's disabled by Takealot. They're currently listed on Amazon, but not purchasable. Here you can also just like copy like the different IDs. You can see the rating of the product. You can go to it and so forth. And then it's like, okay, if there's only one listing, so you're not selling on any of these. And then if there's none, like what would that look like? And while it's loading, this is kind of like what is. So this is really cool. Like I don't know how people do this type of stuff if they don't have something like Storybook. Like,
Mhm.
would you literally go into the product, create an account that has no integrations, say add
Yeah,
integrations, go through the entire process of adding an integration, see how it looks, and then be like, oh shit, like this text is too small or whatever.
yeah. There's
Oh,
something wrong with
yes,
the UI.
yes,
Yeah,
I need to like how do you test like this and like this, like without
yeah,
actually going through the process? Especially when you get to like login and whatever, like there's such weird cases where, oh,
yeah,
you have like a legacy account and you need to move it to the new thing or whatever. I honestly don't know how people do that.
yeah,
But anyway, yeah. So let me see. So this is actually gonna go out pretty. Yeah. Okay. No. Now I'm playing a fire. Let me.
yeah,
Let's leave it at that. I do feel that they have gotten some value from like marketing.
yeah,
For,
definitely.
for me actually sharing this, but yeah, it's. Yeah, I wish I could show more, but you probably also have a ton of stuff you can show.
So
Um,
much, and
yeah.
also exactly what you're showing there of looking
Yes.
at layouts. Uh, we've built up like form interactions in Storybook with
Yes.
validation. You can test
Yeah.
all of that stuff visually. Like, is your validation message off the screen? Is your positioning
Yes.
wrong? You can test all of that. You can test it as you showed in all those different screen size scenarios,
Yes.
just in the Storybook. Yeah,
Yeah. Let me
yeah.
actually just quickly show another thing, because I think this would be also cool to touch on, because this is something I get asked a ton, is like, some mocking things. So you'll see, so in this example that I just showed, we have a testing, we have a mock, and all of this is like, you can just say, do I want the shell? Do I not want the shell? This is literally just like a basic shell of the app. Nothing, like no interactivity, no nothing. Like all the states are like forced. I don't think that this is still running. I know it might still be. Yeah. So like it's the notifications, everything. The plan that you're on. All of this is hard coded, and
Right.
yeah, and so like you just wrap a test. So I can say, okay, I don't actually want the shell in my test, so I can just remove that prop. Let me just see. It should now. Yeah, look at this. Like it's even for this component itself, just a single component. Look how long that took. There we go. So now it doesn't have a shell around it or whatever.
Right. So the
Um,
menu and the top
yes,
header is gone.
and
Yeah.
this is only presentational. There's like no
Yeah.
functionality here. So
Mm.
in the things where we have a bit more functionality, like for example this, we can. So we have two data. We generally split stuff into data layers. So we have our app level data layer, which is kind of, and all that we're doing is we're injecting just like services. So we're not keeping any state in here. We're just injecting like the services for like everything you would do in like on an app level. And then we have our date. So this is entirely across the app. And then we have a usually per feature level. So then we're injecting the services for these features. And so this allows us to actually like do quite a bit of mocking. So you'll see services mocking. So here, like this just mocks all the, this just mocks all of this. What's nice also about that is then, like, so this is a basic one, and then we have another one here where it's like, okay, if it's read only, and then we actually just override the services, and we're like, okay, cool, this one should it return this rule instead of this, and so forth. And as you mentioned, like, yeah, we set the URL and everything. So this is literally everything up to the service level. Like the only thing, we even wrap our HTTP requests in services, you know, so there's like a little layer of abstraction on top of our HTTP request, that's the service. And then maybe just a bit of transformation of data and validation, whatever in that. But like this is basically everything up until the point where it sends the HTTP request. And we can like literally like we can override that, and we can say, so here we're literally overriding our local storage, and we're saying, pretend like this is in local storage. And let's see what else we can say. Okay, for Shopify, let's say if you remove Shopify, then, you know, do an alert, you know, YOLO or whatever, or return or throw an error. So let's say we want to have an instance where it throws a error when you try and remove Shopify, or, you know, return whatever, or and so forth and so forth. So this gives us a lot of flexibility. And I really don't know how people build really complex UIs without something like this. Because like the amount of like very niche states that you need to get into, like to build specific things, are so like, it would take so long to just get your actual mock server into that state where you can even just see the visual components. Yeah. Cool. I don't know if there's anything else you maybe want to share.
Just a couple of things that we've also done in terms of data and so on in Storybook is if we've got GraphQL, we use GraphQL CodeGen. I don't know if you are familiar with that.
So we're actually generating.
I can't really show it.
Okay. Yes.
I'll maybe show GraphQL CodeGen.
Yes.
So this is just a nice way to generate data from GraphQL schemas. So we can actually use what approximates real data in Storybook itself. And we can just run that within our app when we build Storybook also. So that's a nice way to test with real data if you've got it. Yeah.
No, 100%. I have to say, I'm also a bit of a hardliner or a purist when it comes to your UI shouldn't know anything about them, like the actual. So I kind of tend to go with like a kind of a bit of a MVVM approach. It's kind of like view model view, where like your view model is kind of your mediator between your model and your view, between the server and your UI. So the server shouldn't have any idea what's happening on the view, or make any decisions based on what's happening on the view, and your view should not know anything or base any decisions what's going on the model. So I'm a bit of a hardliner in that sense. So I deliberately try and keep those things separated. So I don't use any of this kind of like mock HTTP or you know, any of these plugins for Storybook. I literally just do service injection or dependency injection. So I just have a factory function that just create my services, and I pass that in, or I pass in another function that creates my fake services, or one that has this specific service that does this, and so forth. So but I know I'm kind of the minority on this, but like I don't know, it's just like kind of the way I reason about code and architecture and so forth.
Right.
But yeah, like there is a ton of like there's also one that a lot of people use is the mock service worker one. For like mocking HTTP requests as well and so forth. So let me share my screen. There is actually quite a couple of Storybook like add-ons. Do you guys use any of these?
We use a couple of add-ons, not too many. We use so I'm just checking here what we've got. We do the essentials, which is your blocks.
Yes.
That all come with Storybook. That's the
so this is the one I
Storybook
just
blocks, the
spoke about.
documentation, the light and dark mode, the responsive. That's all part of Storybook Essentials.
Yes.
So we use that. And actions, we do use actions as well.
I just use alerts. Like I literally just stringify, but it's once again, it's because of the way we build. So everything that gets passed around is a kind of like a standard flux action. So
right.
So it's not like once again, it's
that's
mostly used in Redux, but obviously we don't even use Redux, we use Zustand. But but this isn't something that's specific to Redux. This idea of an action and a payload is like a more general computer science principle. So we just model all events as actions with payloads. So that makes it easier. So when you want to like test something in Storybook, all you do is you just you stringify the action. You just pop it as an alert. So that means you get this type of stuff where is there any here? I think so there. Let's see. Type copy clipboard, and this is the payload. And so forth. Shopify link, this is also Faker.js. It's broken earthquake.info.
.info. We use Faker too always because you do need you are mocking a lot of the time when you're building UIs.
And I think also the other thing is I think where the type of stuff that I build is maybe also a bit different from what you guys build is I work on a lot of multi-tenant things. I don't know if you guys like do those type of things where you have but like
absolutely.
So you have the same like the same product being used by like completely different like businesses or whatever. Okay, so that's been like, so like fake data is kind of, I don't know how you would solve that without fake data, because there is no canonical version that page can look like. It can be anything.
I think maybe the kind of products that are in the application you build is perhaps that is the case. With us, it tends to be there is a provider that has their services are almost identical as they are used by a multi-tenant, because they're subjected to the rules and the.
I see. Okay, so it's a lot more standardized.
It's a lot more standardized.
So we have like, but there's this one specific like customer that they want this specific column in the table, and none of the others
we don't do that.
So Storybook is really great for like Faker.js is really great for that type of stuff, because it forces you to really not get attached to what you're visually seeing.
So what we've done around that, because we have to deal with things like mostly branding type problems, where it has to be branded, because people are clients of this organization, not
and it
this
has to be the
organization.
Pantone color.
So we've built a whole system around generating values from HSL via a CMS, via Strappy, color picker, etc. It's very nice. Maybe I'll do a talk about that someday. and then there are certain rules that are also generated in that CMS. So, for example, if someone has a different rule around a debit order amount on an investment, they can set that there, and we handle that kind of thing. But in terms of UI display and like, oh, we want an extra column in our, we don't do things like that.
Yeah.
That would be an absolute nightmare for financial services. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So we don't really have that problem in terms of data changing to that extent. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think that about covers it. I don't know if
Thanks,
there's
Schalk. That
anything
was very
else.
interesting.
Yeah, for myself as well. Kind of seeing how you
Yeah,
guys
it's really
use
nice
it.
to see how, same tools are used in different ways because we all kind of trying to get to the same point,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is a working application that people can use. Yeah.
And I think the thing is as well, especially in the React ecosystem, but I mean Storybooks, I used Storybook on an Angular project last year. Is like these tools aren't prescriptive. Honestly,
No,
like
not
the
at
only
all.
extent to which it's prescriptive is they would really like you to use grammatic. And that
Yes, of
pops in
course.
every here and there. Like that's if it's nudging you in any direction, it's trying to nudge you to use grammatic. But beyond that, like
Yeah.
I don't even know if they know what people use Storybook for.
In the latest versions of Chromatic, if you try and do a visual test, it actually of Storybook, try and do a visual test, they say to enable visual testing, please visit Chromatic.
But like to be fair, they've built an amazing
fair,
product. So,
yeah.
like
I mean,
like if that is what
people,
if that is what is needed to keep Storybook going, I'm all for it. You can even put YouTube
absolutely,
apps in there. I don't even care. Yeah. Okay, cool. This is really great. I'd be curious, even like after this recording, if people have any questions or whatever, and they want to leave it as comments or so forth. Because like I actually don't see a lot of these type of videos. I see a lot of like, what is Storybook? How to set up Storybook. So I'd be really curious, like what was helpful and what we could have gone into that might have been more helpful and so forth. But
absolutely, and join our Discord if we can continue the conversation. There's the link.
Yes, yes.
If you aren't already a member there, we can have some lively discussions.
Yes, yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. Have a great evening, Justin, and thanks everyone for joining.
Schalk. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.